Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. I hope you are doing well. We have an awesome guest for you this week. Please welcome me in joining Michelle Jackson. Michelle is an agent with LCS Literary, and I am very excited to have a chat with you today just about agenting, about authors, about just sort of that side of the life. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thank you so much for having me, Susan. It is a pleasure. I am a brand new agent, well, going towards my first year in agenting. And I started off as an author, so I write romance fiction and women's fiction. And throughout the journey, you get to know other author friends, and I work with them a lot. Writing can be a really lonely world. So when you can connect with other authors and begin to just share and help each other out with concepts, etc. And so, I found that I really enjoy doing that, just helping other authors and giving some advice, looking at their first pages, all of that. So I was just like, well, I'm doing this anyway, so why don't I broaden a little bit and see how I can help others? And so, in addition to writing, I now started into agenting, and it's something that I truly enjoy doing. Besides that, I'm a mom of two sons, and I have some stepchildren that I also love dearly, some wonderful stepchildren as well. And what else? And I'm also a new grandmother. So I have a little grandbaby girl who is absolutely amazing. I feel like she's the best grandbaby in the world, but I could be wrong there.
I think my mom might fight you on that, but I think pretty much everybody's mom might fight you on that. So
Probably.
that's the prerogative of a grandparent, is that your grandbaby is the best grandbaby out there. So that's fantastic. Well, first and foremost, congratulations on making that step towards agenting. We always need new people out there looking for
Oh,
new
yes.
stories, new opportunities, different perspectives, everything like that. So now, I know you said you are both author and agent. That is
Yes.
mind-blowing to me, because they're just such different sort of mentalities in some respect,
Yes,
right? You're coming
definitely.
from a creative side, but then also from a business side. So talk a little bit about sort of balancing that in your life.
Well, something that binds the two worlds together is a love for reading. And before I became an author, I was and still am an avid reader.
Mhm.
And so just the enjoyment of that. And that's something that you get to do as an agent as well. I tell everyone this, that as an agent, remember, I'm a reader first. And so it's, do I personally as a reader connect with this work? Do I know of an editor that I think might connect with this work? But it starts with me first. How do I feel about this work? And so bridging the two, I have to say it does require a lot of discipline. There you have to turn on your creative hat when it's time to write your own work, but I'm still using that a lot when I read others' work. I think it also, because I know of the craft of writing and I have some developmental skills behind me and content editing, it does also help me with my authors. It also helps me as an author to, because I know that world, I know the feeling of giving your manuscript to someone. It really helps me have a different attitude of really building the authors that I work with and establishing those important relationships. So that's a little bit of how I kind of try to balance both. It's a juggle, but when you love something and you're passionate about it, you make the time for what's important.
Well, yeah, for sure. Well, and certainly I think having that expertise on the author side probably helps in that connection with your authors, not only on the creative level, but also in how you can relate and talk to them. One of the things that I know I'm always very constantly aware of. I'm a book editor. I am not an author. I have the utmost awe for authors because I cannot do it. It's sort of like the what I always say to people that ask me about that is it's sort of like being a an art critic where I can
Oh,
tell you something is beautiful or what's going on with it, but they're like if I tried it'd be stick figures, honestly.
yeah.
And I think one of the benefits to what you're doing is that you know what it's like to take that criticism or that business advice or what have you, so you know how to really talk to authors on a new level,
Mm.
and really have that discourse work well for both of you. So that's phenomenal.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and definitely, it's it's something, as I said, I've been an author for actually close to 20 years or so, a little bit more than 20 years now. And so this bridge for me, just getting the chance to help other authors, particularly other minority authors as well. Being a minority agent, there aren't a lot, but there's a lot more than there were before, in my opinion. And different programs that are there to help agents of color as well. So I that was something that I wanted to do, is help other authors, particularly those of color. But if I'm being honest, it's really any author. Which uh, you give me a good book, it's about the book for me as well. But if I can also help other authors of color, achieve traditional publishing, that would be wonderful for me, because I was able to break through into traditional publishing, and really, even now, work with some wonderful editors. Kudos to editors that work in relationship with authors, giving you those tough edits. You have to be able to say, yeah, you think this is good, but this is how to make it better.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah.
making sure that representation is growing in especially traditional publishing
Yes.
is massive. LCS Literary is a big advocate for that. Latoya, it
Yes.
was at Grand Central. Actually,
Yes.
when I was at Hachette, she is
Oh,
phenomenal. I don't know that she remembers me. I'm not claiming a friendship in any way, shape, or form, but she was
I
there
will
when I was
ask her.
and she's awesome. So I think the agency is doing a phenomenal job of that, and it's really great to see. Now I know people watching this are going to ask, what are you as an agent, as a new agent who has open spots, who is actively looking for more manuscripts, what are you looking for?
Of course, I will never say no to a good romance. A lot of times I think people look at romance and probably even category romance, and say, well, it's not as easy as you think. We all know how it's going to end. It's the journey. And so for me, it's just, if you can give me a great premise, a great idea, but also execute it, because that's what I'm discovering, is that I'm looking for romance, I'm looking for women's fiction, and I'm open to other things. I definitely feel those are like my, I don't know, maybe my scarf or something. It's easy for me to put those on because I know that world well. But I'm open. I'm looking for, even if it's a blended thing, a blended genre, like, I like paranormal. That's also a romance. I tried to get this one author whose book I was blown away by, but she signed with someone else. That's common too in this agenting world. But yeah, so I'm definitely looking strong women's fiction in particular, multicultural fiction in particular. I recently just signed my first nonfiction, so I'm looking nonfiction on anything that deals with positive things, hopeful things, self-help, cooking. I'd like something fun in the nonfiction world as well, and even true crime, different things. It just comes down to me, for me, the writing, the premise,
Mhm.
those two things. If you give me a premise, I am a reader all the way through. I want to read it. Thrillers, you know, psychological thrillers. I'm open to that. Suspense. I'm really open, I think. But definitely much more comfortable in the adult world. I've opened to young adult historical fiction, romance, the same kind of categories as I do for adults. I'm open there as well. Haven't really found the one yet, so I'm hungrily looking for that as well. You know, I'm slowly opening up and in search of books that makes me laugh, makes me cry, the family dynamics, mother-daughter relationships, you know, books about friendship. I'll never get tired of those, but give me a different spin on it, you know. Give me something that's going to make me just glued to that page where my eyes are hurting, where I quit writing to read your book. That's what I'm looking for.
Aren't we all searching for that next one?
Yes,
And then we find it and we're like, dang it, I have to actually work. I have to do both. What is that? I just want to sit here with my book and read.
yes,
So I completely agree with you. Premise is the penultimate. It is
yes.
so good. So now when people query you, I'm guessing that's probably what you're looking for the most. Like what catches your eye in a query? Like what about something? Is it, they should lead with the premise? Does that really catch you? Do you like it when people make things, I know some people really try to make a personal connection when they reach out. Obviously, you don't want to feel like you're just another form letter when they reach out to you. Do you have any advice for authors that are querying like that?
For me, you know, a good query is one that does what it's supposed to do. The premise is really important. Tell me what this book is about. Tell me, is the book complete? The word count, the genre. Those are the things that I look for. But above all, I look for the premise. I just want to know what makes me want to read this particular book. And as far as writing a query, one of the things that it sounds really common, and I think a lot of people listening probably heard this before, but it really is true. It is what is it on the back of a book that would make you want to read this book? And that's what I'd like to see in the query. Something that's when you think of a query, think back of a book. You know, you don't have, it doesn't give everything away. It's more of something that makes your eyebrow raise and go, ooh, okay, I need to read this right away. And, you know, yes, we do have the common tropes and whatever, but you're different because you're the person writing it, and so bringing your voice there. I do like to connect to the character right away in a sample. I do ask for a sample as well because, again, for me, as I said before, I think I've said it probably 3 or 4 times now, is the premise and then the writing. So I look at the premise, but I always, even because not everybody is that good at a query letter, so I go to the writing, and it's that first page, the first few pages. I ask for the first 10 pages because if I want to keep reading after that, then I'm going to keep reading. And when I get really deep into a book, I've actually had a couple of my clients who are signed. One of them even asked me, is this that she was wondering, is this a bot? Because of how fast I requested everything. I generally ask for the first 50, and if after that I want to keep going, then I ask for the full. And it was literally back to back. And so but it's me, I'm reading. I do read very quickly when I'm into a story, and so that's I'm looking just to get lost. You know, you ask about the genres. Yes, whether it be lighter on the fantasy, lighter on the speculative side. You know, a lot of people use that word, but it's really true for me. Grounded in the realism. You know, think like a lake house, something like that. I'd love to read that. I am also a major Disney fan, so give me the Little Mermaid retelling, give me this, give me that. I'm hooked. I've written a couple of those that inspired me even recently, so anything like that. I just don't think that certain things are gonna get old for me. I'm just gonna always be like, the Beauty and the Beast. Oh yes, I'm hooked. So there's just certain things that, and now I was saying this to someone that, just for me myself, that, got a personal note, got a second chance at love. I'm definitely interested in second chance romances as well.
That is
And even girlfriend books about second chances,
sure. Well, I mean, that's beautiful, and I'm with you on the happily ever after, whether it's a romance or women's fiction or what have you. And retellings are really big right now
Yes.
with especially in romance with oh shoot, and her name's gonna escape me now. Scarlett.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll think of it after we're off this
Yeah.
now. You know how that goes. And with Katie Robert and a whole bunch of other people that
Mhm.
are writing a variety of pretty heavy retelling. So I know that's been something that people have been really enjoying. And it's an important point you brought up earlier about the query letters, seeing what's on the back of the book. That's something that I always talk about as well, because one of the questions that comes up a lot in my interaction with authors is, well, do I need to explain the whole thing? Do I need to tell the ending? Do they want to know how it ends? And for me, it really is more about, hooking the idea, getting them excited, and you almost don't want to put the ending just for the pure fact of you want them to reach out and say, okay, I need to know. I
Yes.
need to know how it ends. I need you to send
Yes.
me more. So I think, imagining it like the back of the book, even going as far as to have like the line up top, the hook up top, and then the back cover copy. I think that's fabulous to see, and that's what a lot of authors do to really make that connection with their agent.
Mm-hmm. Something else too, actually, that it's really important just to me, because, and this is where being an author comes in, that bridges over into the agenting world. I find that the level of um craft is really evident when an author has worked with a writers group or with other get beta readers. That's what I'm looking to hear. You're a debut author. I'm not looking to hear that you necessarily have all these followers, because that may not be the case. But did you work with, did you get other people to read your book? Not like your family that's going to go, this is great, and they didn't read the whole book in full. But anyway, but like, other authors that read it and give feedback. I think that that's what I would also love to know from an author that's looking for traditional publishing. It's really important, if you haven't done so, to really network with other authors and learn from them. There are things that I still learn even now from my author friends, that you can share things like, what do you think of this blurb? What do you think of this book idea? That kind of things, so that otherwise by yourself you're like, this is marvelous, but you do need to get some perspective. And so getting different readers to look at your work is really important. I know I read a lot. I don't comment, but I read a lot in some groups that I'm in, where people are like, people are going to steal your work and this and that. No one can write what you write. And the idea is that you're sharing with other author friends or other people that, you've had a relationship and no one trusts. That's all I can say on that. But if that's the case, we wouldn't have forums like NetGalley and all these things that are letting your books out there to a ton of people to read before it even releases. So, it's a part of the world, is getting other readers as well. And I know I'm a little bit chatty, but I will say this really quickly, which is there have been three books of mine that an editor fell in love with, and before they agreed to to, yes, I want to see this book, they have to then take it to their editorial board, and other people are looking at the book. So it's something that is better, that if you get used to that before this, you'll understand, because they died right there. The others were like, I'm not enthused, and that was it. So there's a lot of no's in this world, so start off with some great other author friends and get them, say, I'll read your book if you read mine, and start there, and begin talking and sharing a little bit, and some honest feedback, I think, really helps.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, and not only on the networking side of things, to give support even in the beginning and also throughout, obviously, just continuing to have that support, and then hopefully, trading reviews and everything like that. I mean, you can carry those
Yes.
author friends forever, but also to, just be able to have that conversation as you're editing as well, and being able to take that feedback and not just send. There are a lot of authors that have such a passion, and passion is obviously vital in this industry, but you don't want to just finish a book and send it off. And I think that's one thing that, whether it's over ambitious or whether it's out of fear, authors are like, all right, I hit the end, I gotta get it off my desk, I gotta get it off my desk. And I love the enthusiasm of that, but you want to just sort of shake them and say, wait, just because you want to make sure your book is as, as far as you can push it on your own, or with those beta readers or other outside critique groups, before you go to agents. And maybe
Yes.
you agree or disagree. Some agents like to see it a little bit earlier, because obviously you'll have your own edits and questions and things like that a lot of the time, but you also don't want to burn a bridge that then maybe later you would have been able to connect with an agent because you were further along in your writing journey.
Yes, definitely. Mhm.
So now talk a little bit about the agenting process. So, say somebody sends you a book and you absolutely love it, it's great. So what does the sort of process look like
Yes.
for somebody like that?
Now, for me, I use Query Manager. And so in Query Manager, you'll know if I'm interested, because I'm asking you for the manual, for the manuscript, and I am reading through. And then I generally will say, hey, when is a good time to call you? I have cold called a couple of times, and I've gotten voicemail. But for the most part, I do reach out and go, hey, I'd like to set up a meeting when it's convenient for you. And then I'll take it offline and go through email. I generally set up a Zoom meeting, and then I will, kind of pitch myself for your book and answer questions. It's all about that conversation, like how do we connect, and answer any questions that you might have. So I've done different mediums. I've done it through Zoom. I've done it through phone call. Zoom is my preference, though, where we kind of see each other face to face as much as possible. I do talk about things like, obviously I love the book, what I loved about it, because I'm also I my saying is, I'm only signing authors that I'm a fan of, so I'm a fan of what I read. So you already have your first fan, and that's my job there. And then some authors, I've had a couple that just said, okay, I want you right away. And then, but generally the standard practice is 2 weeks. They'll let other agents know, they'll review any other offers that come in of representation if there aren't any. But I generally do say, please at least let me know if you go with someone else.
Sure.
And I'll hold that place until I hear from them. But so generally that's how it works for me. And I make that offer, then I wait, then it's in their hands after that, and they decide based on the offers that they have, will this work for me or not. And once they're on board, then I generally tell them, we might go through a few rounds of edits. till I feel okay, this is ready. I go through the pitch, I share all that with them so they get a chance to see that. I generally do still like a synopsis, even though I only work with complete manuscripts. I do like a synopsis. I do feel that it helps an editor, in the future, they could have read your book months ago and then they decide to pitch it to their team. It does help them to go back and see
Yes.
what was this book about. So I do like to include that as well. And I do share my submission list. I share I call them updates.
Hmm.
When an editor pass on there, I call them updates and I say I have an update for you. But then after a while, if we have a few passes, we might meet and decide, is there anything that we can revise, that we can pick out from this? And so it's just that constant communication is what they get from me. And that's a little bit of my process.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. A lot of people focus so much on getting an agent interested. They don't think about what happens next and how important that communication is, because not only are you, like you said, their first fan, their biggest fan, because you're going to be pitching to the editors, getting them to publishers, everything like that, and giving them feedback. So you want to have good communication and a similar vision for the story and where they want it to go. But it's also a reality of the business that you don't get paid till they get sold. So, and I think that's
Yes.
important because so many fake agencies out there are like, oh yeah, I'll represent you if only you pay me XYZ. It's like, no, that's not
Ex-
real agenting.
Exactly.
So you have as much stake in the game as they do, and I think that's important for authors to understand and to find the right connection and partnership with that, and to not just take either the first offer that comes across their desk, and also not to take
Mhm.
lightly choosing between agents
Mhm.
as well. So yeah, it's a big process.
Yes, it is. It really is. But there's nothing like it when, you're even when you get a close to a yes. I call that, oh, I'm taking this before the board. And then, you may get the beautiful letdown of the board didn't take it, but at least it does validate you as an agent, like, okay, I know I have a good product here. Someone who is interested in this. But that kind of, I'm sorry to jump, but that kind of reminded me of what I do let a conversation I do also have with my authors when I do meet with them is, what else are you working on? Because that's
Hmm.
really important, because no one knows for sure what can happen. And I don't want you to get any author to get really depressed because this is the only thing they have. So I'm always telling them the best thing to do when you're on submission is to be writing something else, and write, because it may not be this book, but it could be another book. And I'm in it for the long haul. If I sign with someone, that's my intention. What happens after that can happen, but it's my intention to just build that relationship and to work with an author in that manner of, okay, this may not have worked according to plan, but what else do you have? Let's get working on this and move on, So trying to keep it really positive, because no's is a lot in this world. You are going to get no. I get no's every day, and it seemed like they all choose the same day because you might get 3 or 4 passes in one day. So it's just the nature of the business. It's not something you can take personally. You just have to say it's very subjective. And that sounds like a cliche, but it really is true.
Oh, it is. And, it might not be this book, or it might not be, this particular premise, but it might be the next one, or it might be, not necessarily the voice for this book or the
Yes.
writing for this book, but you're always growing and
Yes.
changing. And so it's really important, like you said, to just keep moving. So
Yes.
all right. Do you have any last minutes end of the interview advice for authors out there, for other agents that might be watching this, for, just anybody in the publishing industry in general?
Mm. I think for fellow agents that are starting out, I would say same for authors. Actually, do not get discouraged by no's. It's a part of the business. there, and do not compare your journey with someone else's. There will be those that, hey, may do one submission and they get a yes, and it's just smooth sailing from there. Who knows? But the realistic journey is that there are a lot of no's along the way. Publishing can move slowly at times for both agents and authors, and so a lot of patience is needed. So as I said before, for authors, it's best for you to always keep your creative juices going and to keep writing. And also for agents, keep networking, keep building those relationships, and build relationships with fellow agents as well as with editors, which is obvious in the business as well. So
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. It has been wonderful hearing your
thank
insights. I'm
you.
so excited to see what you put out into the world and which authors you help. I'll have to follow along to see, because I'm always looking for new romance and women's fiction. Those are also things that I read voraciously. So I'm always looking for new books, and I'm excited. I'm very excited.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure. Have a good rest of your day.
Same to you.